Hey everyone, it's Kavacat. In this tutorial, I'm going to be going over human fall flat vehicles. Before I get started, I'm going to go over what this video is and what this video is not. So this video is a guide to human fall flats node system and how you can use the nodes to move a wheel in a circle and also how to rotate that wheel. This tutorial is not really going to be going over the complex physics system that creates really high quality assets like this dump truck you see that comes from the standard human fall flat assets. However, I am going to be showing you how you can kind of steal these wheels and physics systems to create a cool asset that still has really high production quality and that is kind of abstracted away in a sense where you can create your own wheels that use the same physics system. So I'm going to get into game here and show you what I mean. So I land on the ground and you can see that there's these nice wheels that have lots of resistance to being grabbed. And if I jump up on here, there's kind of like this hydraulic system. You can see if I'm jumping up and down, the wheels kind of bounce. And that creates a nice high quality, industrial type vehicle. So if we click on this and I open my node graph, there's a lot of stuff going on. You can see on this hierarchy here, there's a bunch of junk that's really confusing. And the more you expand it, the worse everything feels because you have no idea what's going on. But don't worry, I'm going to simplify everything for you so you have a good idea what's happening. So there's only two things we really care about. The first is going to be this gearbox. And the second is going to be this joint sensor. So the gearbox, if I click on this, is just a fancy lever. If I look at the gearbox script over here, you can see it has these snap forces, these relax, reverse angles, reverse values, and essentially just lets you customize what a lever's like. If I were you, I would just create a normal level or lever from the human fall flat assets and use that instead. There's no particular merit unless you have like a high concept of what this is. So if I continue looking at this node graph, I can see that the output of the lever determines the angular velocity of 6 objects. And these objects are just the wheels. So if the lever's forward, it's going to move the wheels forward. And if the lever's backwards, then it's going to move the wheels backwards. That's all this is it's just setting the direction the wheels are turning. Second component here, the joint sensor, this is based on the rotation of the wheel. So when I turn this wheel, it's going to output a value. And I'm going to use that value to set the rotation of the 2 front wheels. And if the 2 front wheels are rotated, then when the car moves forwards, the car will turn in that direction, just like a car would in real life. So with that in mind, and how we really simplify this as much as humanly possible, I'm going to show you how you can kind of steal the wheel and steal the steering wheel to create some really cool assets that you can fine tune to whatever you like. So to start, I created a simple cube. I'm going to color it red. And I'm going to scale it. This is going to be the base of my car. Next, I'm going to create an empty game object and name it car. And I'm going to add a few components to the car. First, I'm going to add a rigid body. And I think 300 is probably a good mass for starters. And then, of course, we want a net body, so it works with multiplayer. And then lastly, we want a node grid. So I'm going to grab my cube. I'm going to rename it to base. And I'm going to drag the base under the car. The next thing we're going to go over is stealing these assets. So the front tires differentiate from the back tires because the front tires rotate, but the back tires do not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal one of each of the front tires and one of each of the back tires, or one pair, I guess. So I'm going to come to my front tires and I'm going to click on both of them and I'm going to hit Control D and that's going to duplicate them. And now I can just drag them and move them closer to my car. Then I'm going to select one back tire on the right side and one tire on the right side in the back. Again, Control D duplicates them. I can slide them over to my car. And now with my 4 duplicated objects, I'm going to click on the top one shift click so I can select them all, and then I'm going to drag them out to my car. So now they're parented under the car instead of the truck. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward a little bit here, and I'm going to restructure the wheels so that they fit to the side of my car like what would feel natural and right. Okay, so now that I have the wheel set, I want to make one important note that these wheels actually have child objects, which we're going to be using later. The parent objects have a mesh collider, but it's not enabled. So be careful that you might actually click on a child object and move that instead. You have to make sure you're moving the parent object so that they're in the same position. So just making note of that. The next thing we have to cover is if our wheels are rotating, they're going to be rotating into the body of the car. This isn't a really high production quality model as the truck over here is. So when this tire is rotating, it's going to kind of cut into the body of the car. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on my body. I'm going to click on ignore collisions. And I'm going to add this ignore collision script. And I'm going to set the size to 4. So now when I click on these tires, again, like I mentioned before, the parent has a mesh collider, but it's not enabled, but the mesh collider of the child does. So I'm going to click on my base, and I'm going to drag and drop each of these child objects of the tires into the ignore collisions. And this just tells the physics system, hey, if these two objects are colliding, don't do anything about it. Let them phase through each other. So again, if we wanted something higher production quality, model something that has like an axle or an arch or something. We're just going to use a cube because it's to demonstrate how we can make something work. So the nice thing about stealing the tires is that we get all these nodes that pop right into our node graph. We don't have to add anything. So if I grab these nodes, all we need to do now is supply them with something. So to start, I'm going to head back over to my truck, and I'm going to steal one last thing, and that's going to be the steering wheel. So if I click on the steering wheel base, and then the steering wheel, again, Control D, slide them over here. I'm going to parent them to my car. And just for organization's sake, I'm going to create 2 game objects under my car. They're just empty game objects. I'm going to name one wheel, or steering wheel is probably better. And then one called tires. And I'm going to rename my tires because they have really ugly names. So this is going to be my left, back left, back right, front left, right. And if I just shift click, drag these into my tires, and if I grab the steering wheel, drag into my steering wheel, and now if we collapse all this, we have a much cleaner hierarchy for our car. So now that the wheel's been added, we have this joint sensor that appears. And the steering wheel has these SFX sound effects. I'm not really going to use these for anything. I don't really want sound effects for my example. You want to keep them and set something up so that it plays sound effects when you grab them or something. You're more than welcome to. But I'm just going to come into here and I'm going to delete the steering SFX. Then now I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to grab my joint sensor and I'm going to set the normalized values to set the rotation. If I were to choose this value, the wheels are going to be rotating super, super fast. We don't really want that. We just want to have it be nice and slow and be transitioned properly. The next thing I have to do is figure out a way to set up my angular velocity nodes. So I could do whatever I want to power this car. I could have a button on the other side of the map, and I could just have it hook up to the angular velocity nodes, and I could use that. I could have a lever like the truck here does. I could use the gadget or the, what was it called, gearbox, and I could use that. I could have a trigger volume so that if I just stood on the car, it would move. In this example, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm just going to click on my steering wheel here, And I'm going to add a grab sensor. And so now whenever I'm grabbing the steering wheel, it'll power the vehicle on. Now, due to some ugly physics things, I do have to do one more step, and I have to add another ignore collision here. And it seems weird that I have to do this, but if I don't, we get some wonky interactions. So I'm going to add a, ignore collision script. I'm going to set it to the size of 4, and again, I'm going to come back through my tires. I probably should have done these 2 steps. That's okay. And now that it's set up, there won't be any issues with that. Okay, so now if I go to my steering wheel, there's one more thing I have to look at, and that's the joint axis. So if I click on my steering wheel, and I click on this axis here, the angular joint is set, its body or anchor rather, is set to the truck. That's not good. The truck is, I'm referring to this truck, this yellow one over here. So whenever something uses a servo motor joint, I'm not going to get too far into it, but I've explained this in my servo motor video if you watched it before, but it needs a reference to the object it's moving with. So in that case, it's moving with the car. So I'm going to drag the car into the anchor, just like that. We're all set. So now that we have that set, we just need to set the tires, and I think we should be good to go. So click on the tires here. Each tire has a configurable joint. So this is the parent object, not the child object. It has a configurable joint. Again, the connected body, because I stole it from the car, is set to the truck. So instead, I'm going to set it to my car. So now that I have that, we should just be about to go. Good to go. So let me grab my spawn points. And move it close to my car, and let's see if I messed anything up. Okay, nothing's freaking out. That's a good sign. So one thing I'm noticing right away is that the front tires are like higher up off the ground. That's for 2 reasons. One, it looks like the mesh used for the front tires is a bit bigger. Again, I'll show you how to change that if you really want to. So I'm going to climb up here. Hopefully, if I just grab this, there we go, we start moving. So I can turn the wheel. I can turn my car. So pretty lame. You see like the tire just clips into the box, the base. Now that's whatever. And we can only go forwards right now. So a couple things I want to be able to show you that you can change. So first things first is I click on the tires, the angular limits. So if I click on this edit joint angular limits, you can actually see this nice little gizmo here where it's like these arcs. And if I change this, I can actually change how much the wheel can turn. So the more the wheel can turn, the tighter your turn radius is going to be. You don't want it to be too much because then it's going to be like weird, but you don't want it to be too low so you can never make a sharp turn. So I'm not going to use these gizmos because I can only set one at a time. But if I come to my low angular X limit and high angular X limit, I can actually change it directly to both at the same time, as long as they're both selected. So let's say, so right now it's saying negative 30 degrees to positive 30 degrees. Well, I want it to be 60 degrees to positive 60 degrees. And now my wheel can turn twice as much. So I'm going to have a much sharper turn distance if I pull my wheel all the way over. The next thing I want to go over is part of that reason why the front wheel is lifted up so much, because the target position was set higher than the back wheels. If I look at the back wheels, you can see the target position is set to 0.2 on the X, but on the front wheels, it's set to 0.2. If I change that to 0.2, that should reduce, at the very least, the height. So now the car should look a lot more like it does right now, where it's flat, all the wheels are on the same level. One more thing that I can change also is this grab sensor is outputting a binary, essentially, output signal where it's either 0 or 1. If I want to change that so I can change the speed of the car, I can just come to car and add something like a signal math mul. And if I hook up the grab sensor, use the multiply signal to set the angular velocity. And I can change the other output, so I can set this like say 0.3. Now my car is going to be moving a lot slower. So let's look at all those changes combined. And you can change this value to be whatever you want. You could say it's like 20 or something, so you could fly off the map instantly if you really want. Let's climb my car. And see, now I still have this really nice like kind of hydraulic system that makes it feel very like physical. It feels good. It feels human fall flat, sort of physics-based game, right? So if I grab this, now I'm moving a lot slower. But now I can also turn a lot sharper corners. So you can mess around with those kind of variables and make it whatever you like. The last thing I want to show you is what if you don't want these tires? What if you want something that looks cooler? So what you can do is you can click on these child objects here, like all the child objects, and you can change these to look and have the mesh collider or whatever the hell you want. So I don't like this big flat tire. I'm feeling like, what's what can I pick? Is there a Christmas present? Gift, okay. Let's use a flat gift. That's comical, right? I'm gonna set the color to black leather again. Why not? And then if I set the mesh collider, mesh to the same thing. So we have this really ugly looking like Fred Flintstone's car, but let's just see what happens. Maybe it still works. Again, nothing's broken. I'll just climb on here. And if I grab the wheel, look at that. We still have some movement. So that's cool. That's funny. You can do a lot of goofy stuff like this, and it still uses the same physics as before. Now we can just make it look like whatever we want. And we can do some really stupid stuff that's also fun to play around with. So that's about the gist of the tutorial. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments or ping me on Discord. I'm always in the Human Fall Flat Discord. The asset I created here will be posted onto GitHub, as always, in the link to the description below. I've also created a lever here so that you can change it. So maybe instead you want a lever, use a lever instead of the grab sense. So that's everything. Thanks guys for watching. Have fun making levels. Peace out.